In the shadow of the pyramids, where time itself holds its breath, a story was written not in stone, but in water, blood, and fire. It is a tale of a clash between a god-king and the god of creation, a divine confrontation that would forever alter the course of a nation and ETCH itself into the memory of humanity. This is the story of the 10 plagues of Egypt, but not as a simple account of wrath. It is a revelation of hidden meanings, a spiritual journey from bondage to freedom, and a testament to a power that transcends earthly might. Long ago, the Nile River was the lifeblood of Egypt, a sacred artery that nourished the land and its people. The pharaoh, seen as a living god, ruled with an iron fist, his heart as hardened as the granite of his statues. Beneath his gaze, the children of Israel toiled, their cries for freedom swallowed by the vast desert sands. But their whispers of hope, carried on the wind, reached the heavens. A shepherd named Moses, once a prince of Egypt, was chosen to be the voice of the unheard, to stand before Pharaoh and declare, "Let my people go." Pharaoh, blinded by his own divinity, scoffed at this command. Who was this unseen God to challenge his authority? His refusal set in motion a divine lesson, a series of 10 challenges, each one designed not just to punish, but to dismantle the very foundations of Egyptian belief. Each plague was a direct strike against one of Egypt's revered gods, a systematic deconstruction of a pantheon that held a great civilization captive. The first plague began with the Nile itself. The river that symbolized life, guarded by the god Hapi, turned to blood. The water, once pure and life-giving, became a torrent of death. The fish died, the water became undrinkable, and the very heart of Egypt's faith began to bleed. This was not random destruction, it was a clear statement. The source of Egypt's life was subject to a higher power. The God of Abraham was demonstrating that what man worships as a source of life can be turned to decay if it is not aligned with the true source of all existence. Next, from the bloodied river, came the frogs. The goddess Hecate, with the head of a frog, was the symbol of fertility and rebirth. But when her own symbols swarmed the land, covering every inch of ground, infesting the homes of the rich and poor alike, they transformed from a sign of life into a repulsive, suffocating nuisance. The plague showed that the very forces of creation, when unleashed without balance, become a curse. True fertility and new life come not from an idol, but from the one who commands the waters and the land. The Egyptians were forced to see their symbol of life as a pestilence, a clear message that their goddess was powerless. The third plague was subtle, yet deeply unsettling. Lice or gnats arose from the dust of the earth. The Egyptian priests, known for their meticulous cleanliness and ritual purity, found themselves defiled, unable to perform their sacred duties. The god Geb, the deity of the earth itself, could not protect them from the dust of his own domain. This plague was a strike against the religious authority of Egypt, showing that human rituals of purity mean nothing when the spirit is unclean. Even the magicians of Pharaoh, who had replicated the first 2 signs, were forced to admit, "This is the finger of God." Their magic had reached its limit. Then came the swarms of flies, the 4th plague. But this time there was a distinction. The land of Goshen, where the Israelites lived, was spared. The flies, a symbol of the god Khepri, descended upon the Egyptians, but a divine barrier protected God's chosen people. This was a crucial turning point. The plagues were not a blind storm of nature. They were precise, intelligent, and purposeful. It was a sign of separation, a message that allegiance to the one true God offered protection and sanctuary. It was a visible manifestation of a covenant, a promise kept in the midst of chaos. Pharaoh's heart, however, remained a fortress of pride. The 5th plague struck at the wealth and power of Egypt. its livestock. The goddess Hathor, often depicted as a cow, was the protector of cattle. Yet, a mysterious pestilence swept through the fields, killing the Egyptians' horses, donkeys, camels, and herds. Again, the livestock of the Israelites remained untouched. This was an economic catastrophe, but more than that, it was a spiritual one. The animals worshipped as symbols of strength and sustenance were struck down, proving their divine protectors impotent. The tangible wealth of a nation was shown to be fragile and fleeting when not blessed by the ultimate provider. The sixth plague brought the suffering directly to the human body. Boils, painful and festering, broke out on the skin of every Egyptian, from the lowest servant to the most powerful priests. This was a direct challenge to deities of healing and protection, like Isis and Serapis. The very magicians who had tried to stand against Moses were so afflicted they could not even appear before him. It was a humbling lesson in human vulnerability. No matter how powerful or wise, the flesh is fragile, and true healing for the soul and body comes only from the divine physician. Pride leads to affliction, while humility is the first step toward restoration. With the seventh plague, the heavens themselves became a weapon. A storm of hail, fire, and thunder rained down upon Egypt with a fury never before seen. The sky goddess, Nut, and the god of storms, Seth, were silent. The storm destroyed crops, shattered trees, and struck down anyone caught in the open. Yet again, in the land of Goshen, there was no hail. This plague was a display of awesome power over the elements, a reminder that the sky, the sun, and the rain are not gods to be worshipped, but tools in the hands of the Creator. It was a terrifying symphony of judgment, a final warning before the darkness deepened. Then came the locusts, the eighth plague. What little the hail had left, the locusts devoured. A cloud of insects so vast it blotted out the sun. A nation of locusts, as the scripture says, stripping the land bare. This was a final blow to Egypt's agriculture and its gods of the harvest. The promise of abundance was turned to absolute famine. It was a vision of utter desolation, showing that without divine favor, even the most fertile land can become a barren wasteland. The source of all sustenance had been rejected, and the consequence was emptiness. The ninth plague was perhaps the most psychologically terrifying. A profound darkness fell over Egypt for 3 days, a darkness so thick it could be felt. The people were immobilized, trapped in a void of utter blackness. This was a complete negation of Ra, the sun god, the most powerful and revered deity in the Egyptian pantheon. The king of their gods was snuffed out like a candle. In this suffocating gloom, there was only one place where light remained, in the homes of the Israelites. Light, both physical and spiritual, was shown to be a gift, not a given. It was a sign that in a world of spiritual darkness, faith is the only true illumination. Finally, the 10th and most heartbreaking plague, the death of the firstborn. From the son of Pharaoh on his throne to the son of the captive in the dungeon, a cry of anguish echoed throughout Egypt. This was not an act of random cruelty, but the final, devastating consequence of a hardened heart. Pharaoh, who had ordered the death of Israelite infants, now experienced the depth of that same loss. It was a judgment against the deification of lineage and the pharaonic succession. But in the midst of this sorrow, there was a path to deliverance. The Israelites were instructed to mark their doors with the blood of a lamb. Where the blood was seen, the angel of death would pass over. This was the birth of Passover, a powerful symbol of redemption through sacrifice. The blood of an innocent lamb became the sign of faith, the price of freedom. It was the ultimate lesson. Life is sacred, and only through the covering of a perfect sacrifice can we be saved from the finality of death. The plagues were not simply 10 acts of wrath. They were a divine dialogue, a cosmic dismantling of falsehood. Each plague peeled back a layer of illusion, revealing that the idols of power, nature, and knowledge were nothing before the one, true, living God. They were a painful but necessary surgery to cut out the cancer of pride and idolatry from the heart of a nation, and to forge a new people in the crucible of faith. This ancient story echoes through the ages, reminding us that the idols of our own time, wealth, power, technology, ego are just as fragile. True freedom is not found in what we can control, but in surrendering to a power greater than ourselves. The plagues teach us that sometimes things must be broken down before they can be rebuilt. Darkness must be confronted before we can truly appreciate the light. And the ultimate deliverance from the bondage of our own making often requires a leap of faith, marked by the symbol of sacrifice. For in the end, the story of the plagues is not just about the fall of Egypt. It is about the rise of a people, the birth of a covenant, and the timeless truth that freedom of the spirit is the greatest liberation of all. It is a story of how, even in the face of overwhelming darkness, a single act of faith can part the seas and lead us to the promised land. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing to God Story Reborn for more tales of light and rebirth. Stay curious, and may you always find the light in the darkness.